My name is Miss NORLIANA. I teach English language at Negeri Sembilan Matriculation College. I will be your presenter today. If you have any questions regarding today's lesson, 3 wonderful moderators will help you. Feel free to ask questions in the chat or comment section. The moderators are Miss Nur Fazliana, Miss Norehan, and Miss Norazlina. By now, you should have received 2 reading texts with 14 questions. These are taken from Muet 2018 test. Let's begin. In part 1 of this lesson, we are going to look at active reading strategies. I am going to introduce to you the SIP and ARG strategies. Let me tell you, this has nothing to do with syrup. It may sound almost the same, but it's not the same thing. Let's continue. What does reading mean to you? Let's look at some responses from students in Negeri Sembilan Matriculation College.
Between reading and speaking, I think speaking is more difficult to tackle because you have to think for answers on the spot and the time given is also very limited. They give you 2 minutes to prepare your points. I'm not saying that reading is not difficult, but it's much easier than speaking because you just have to find the answer on the text given. You read the text carefully, you find the keywords, and you will find the answer.
Hi and Assalamualaikum everybody. My name is Anis and I would like to show you guys the test in Muet that I am more confident to score in, which is speaking. It is because, to me at least, I think it's very exciting to speak in English, especially in the Class B, which is a discussion between me and my friends. I think it is very fun and effective way to communicate with my friend in English. Other than that, I also think that I am confident that I can score in Muet speaking because I have a good communication skills. That's it. Thank you for listening.
Now, let's look at responses by some lecturers. According to Ms. Norhani, a lecturer at Pahang Engineering Matriculation College, students complained that reading texts are too long to read. They lose interest to read. They also have problems to apply reading skills such as inferencing and making conclusions. According to Ms. Nur Fazliana, it seems that students do not use appropriate reading strategies when they read. They keep reading the text many times, and yet they still do not comprehend the meaning in the texts. Another lecturer, Ms. Norehan, said that some of her students have no interest to finish reading a text. They easily give up. They also lack of vocabulary and effective skills in reading. Ms. Norazlina believed that students have poor time management, especially during a reading test. They are not very skillful inferring implied information, and they also do not study questions and texts carefully during a reading test. First, let's recall the format or the test specification of the Muet reading paper. It is a 1 hour 30 minutes test with 45 questions, and you will be reading 6 different texts. The most important thing you need to remind yourself is the marks that is assigned for this test. This test is the most difficult paper to score. Why? Very simple. Look at the marks. It has the biggest weightage of all the Muet papers. So what is reading comprehension? The most important thing when we read a text is to comprehend the meaning of the text. But why can't we comprehend the text well? Most probably it's because we have been using passive reading strategies. In passive reading strategies, you will feel disconnected from the texts. What does this mean? It means that you do not see the importance or the reason why you have to read and understand the text, especially when you are reading the text for an exam. You just want to finish reading quickly and answer the question. And most of the time, it will make you feel easily sleepy. There is no real motivation for you to read, therefore there's no focus in reading. Sometimes you emphasize too much on the meaning of certain words instead of the overall meaning. Many people think that reading is simply just to read and to answer questions in an exam, but not really. So therefore, many people do not use a lot of appropriate thinking skills when they read. And if you are not a habitual reader, or reading is not something you like to do in your spare time, reading tests will be a very big challenge for you. Thus, we need to change the way that we read. Instead of passive reading, why not we use active reading strategies? With these strategies, you will easily build connection with the text, as you will use a lot of your prior knowledge. So what is prior knowledge? Prior knowledge is knowledge or experience that you have learned from the past, mainly through reading. You should also enjoy yourself when you are reading. Don't just see reading as a compulsory task when you have a test. It should be something enjoyable. You also have to have awareness and clarity of the ideas that you are reading about. Set a motivation for you to read. Why am I reading this? What would I learn if I read this? Thus, when you do that, you should be able to focus. Also, even if you encounter difficult words, don't worry. Focus more on the overall meaning and use a lot of critical thinking skills and try to turn reading into a habit. Now, let's look at some active reading strategies. Remember the word sip at the beginning? Okay, definitely again, it's not about syrup. SIP stands for Summarize Main Important Points. The anagram would be SIP. Okay, so what do you do when you apply this strategy? Basically, the function of this strategy is to identify the main idea or main ideas in a paragraph. One thing you have to remember, we are so used to having one main idea in a paragraph. Well, that is pretty common, but there are certain texts where there are more than one main ideas in one paragraph, or there could be several paragraphs discussing about the same main idea. So that is why it is important for you to understand the overall meaning of the texts you are reading. When we talk about main idea, it could be mentioned as a stated main idea, meaning the idea is stated directly in the paragraph, or you have to imply the ideas, meaning you have to use the clues given in different parts of the paragraph and make a conclusion what would be the main idea of that paragraph. This strategy requires you to focus on and read one paragraph at a time. Instead of reading one very long text, you focus on one paragraph at a time. Okay, these are some steps that you can try. You may want to start with topics or subtopics of the texts if they are given to you. Or you could look at the first sentence or the last sentence in the paragraph. You could also pay attention to ideas which are repetitive. When we talk about repetitive ideas, it could be that the idea is written in the same sentence structure or the same word repeatedly appearing in the text, or it could be one same meaning, but the text has different words describing the meaning. That is what it is meant by repetitive ideas. If the main ideas or main points is implied, try to look for the commonality between the details given. What this refers back to the repetitive ideas I mentioned before. So look for something that is common, shared by the different sentences or words in the same paragraph. You could also look for signal words like the main, or the purpose of, or the most important of. Look for words that emphasize the highlight or the most important thing in that paragraph. So that could be a very important clue. You are going to be looking and you will be able to find the most important main point there. Once you find it, write down that most important main point on the right side of the paragraph. Okay, write it in a very short sentence. I would highly encourage you to write it down. Don't keep everything inside your mind. You need to be able to see clearly what you have understood about that paragraph, particularly what is the most important main point there. I know that sometimes learning too many new things at the same time might be overwhelming for you. Same goes when you are learning SIP. If the steps mentioned earlier on is too much for you to understand, the simplest thing you can do is to summarize the paragraph in one short sentence. Think of it as writing a topic sentence in an essay. I believe you know what a topic sentence is, right? It's the main idea in the body paragraph. Now, with that understanding, what you can do is you read the whole paragraph and using your own words or words or phrases in the given paragraph, try to come up with one short sentence that summarizes the whole paragraph. This sounds very simple, but believe me, if you practice a lot, it can be a very useful skill during the test. Let's look at an example. This is a paragraph taken from a text that you can find on abcnews.go.com. Let's read this paragraph together. Sharks frequently attack dolphins that leave gaping holes bigger than a basketball. Yet, these remarkably clever creatures defy death and get healed without any medical treatment. Researchers like Michael Zasloff, professor of surgery and immunology at Georgetown University Medical Center, are astounded by the amazing recovery. It is a medical miracle, Zasloff said in a telephone interview. If we could ascertain exactly how the dolphin survived a shark bite, we can provide better treatment for all sorts of injuries, not just shark bites. Now, when you want to apply the SIP strategy, recall the steps mentioned earlier on. You want to look at, perhaps you want to start with the first sentence or the last sentence of the paragraph in case there is stated main idea there. You could also look for repetitive ideas which can be presented in the same sentence structure or using the same vocab, or different sentence structure and different vocabulary but have the same meaning. Okay? Alright, now here, if you look at the first sentence, sharks frequently attack dolphins that leave gaping holes bigger than a basketball. And if you continue reading, you will see that the emphasis is on dolphins being attacked, and yet the dolphins are able to recover easily. Okay? Alright, so the common theme here, sharks frequently attack dolphins. Right? Okay, here, listed in the first sentence. Then this repetitive idea is that it is amazing that dolphins can recover from sharks' bites easily. What supports this idea? Okay. Remarkably, clever creatures defy death. The word remarkably is another word for amazingly. Okay. And then the word creatures is actually another word referring to dolphins. And the word defy means able to overcome. All right. What else do we have? We also have this particular line, heal without any medical treatment. Imagine being attacked by sharks, having injury the size or bigger, a size that is bigger than a basketball, and yet able to recover from the bite without any medical treatment. So this is something amazing, right? Another clue. Are astounded by the amazing recovery. Astounded is another word to describe amazing or remarkable. And then you see the word recovery. This re-emphasizes the idea that the dolphins are able to heal without any medical treatment, even though after getting bitten by sharks. And then this idea is further emphasized in the last sentence when Dr. Zaslov said how the dolphin survived a shark bite. Therefore, based on all this evidence that we see in this paragraph, it is safe to say that the most important main point in this paragraph is that it talks about how dolphins can survive sharks' bites really well. Okay. Now let's look at another example. This time you are going to study a different type of a reading text. And you might be wondering, is this a reading text? I thought a reading text would be in paragraphs form. Well, there are different types of reading text. One is a linear text, the one that we study in the first example. The one you are looking at right now, this is what we call a non-linear text. Does it look familiar to you? If you are always practicing for analysis writing report, then you would notice that the visuals that you have in the analysis report question is similar to this. This is because the visuals in the analysis writing questions are actually non-linear texts. So whatever strategy that you learn in this video for reading can also be applied when you do writing. Okay? Alright, now if you look at this visual, you will see that it is in the form of a graph, a bar graph to be precise. Okay, what's the title of this graph? Online population of kids aged 2 to 11. And then you will see data in thousands. And then you see how the data is divided between boys and girls. And this data was recorded in different years. Remember, one of the steps that you can take to find the most important main idea or main point in a paragraph is by looking at a topic or subtopic if given. Yes, so the topic of this text is the main idea of the text. So, online population of kids aged 2 to 11. So, that is the main point of this text. Now, let's do a quick practice together. What is the main important point in the given paragraph? Let's read. Captain Baker had just returned from a business trip to Washington and found his wife Jane waiting for him at the station in New York. She had tickets for the opera that night and asked the captain to meet her there, as she was afraid they would be late if they did not go directly from the station. So, what can we see in this paragraph? First, we see that it is mentioned Captain Baker just came back from a business trip in Washington. And his wife, Jane, was waiting for him at a station, most probably a train or a bus station in New York. She had tickets for opera, and they are meeting at the station because she was afraid they would be late to the opera. So, the summary of the important point here is Captain Baker met his wife at the station so they won't be late to the opera. So use the clues, words, phrases, or even sentences that you see in the paragraph to help you find the most important point or main idea in the paragraph. Start by looking at the first sentence. If you don't see it there, try looking at the last sentence. If you're still not sure which one is the main important point, then look for repetitive ideas or look for ideas which is highlighted, emphasized in that paragraph. So here in this example, Captain Baker is meeting his wife at the station so that they can go together to the opera and they won't be late. Okay? Okay. The next active reading strategies that I would like to share with you is called ARG. What does it mean? It means ask and respond to self-made questions. Self-made questions refer to your own questions that you ask yourself in order to understand certain details in a paragraph. The details could be the supporting detail or specific information that is relevant to answer certain questions. The details could either be stated directly or it could be implied. And this is a strategy that should be done together with SIP because a paragraph has both main important idea or point and they are supported by supporting details or specific information. What you do is very simple. You pose your own question, maybe 3 to 5 questions at most, based on the paragraph you are reading. And you answer or respond to the question yourself using the details in the paragraph. This might seem like a repetitive action. Why should I ask and respond to question where the answer is already written there in the paragraph? Well, it is to make sure you really understand the details. Therefore, you don't really have to go back to the same paragraph so many times when you are looking for an answer that you believe is in that paragraph. By doing this technique, it helps you to recall information faster. So what you do is, you could write down the question on the left side of the paragraph. If you feel this is a bit too much, taking a lot of your time during the test, you could also just mentally post the questions in your mind and then you just underline the answer to those questions in that paragraph. Examples of details could be names, numbers, locations, other certain textual evidence, or specific reasons. Let's look at this example. I'm using the same paragraph that I used for SIP just now. So sharks frequently attack dolphins that leave gaping holes bigger than a basketball. Yet, these remarkably clever creatures defy death and get healed without any medical treatment. Researchers like Michael Zaslow, professor of surgery and immunology at Georgetown University Medical Center, are astounded by the amazing recovery. It is a medical miracle, Zaslow said in a telephone interview. If we could ascertain exactly how the dolphin survived a shark bite, we can provide better treatment of all sorts of injuries, not just shark bites. Now, as we have discussed earlier on, we have circled or we have highlighted several textual evidence or clues, words or phrases given in the paragraph to understand the main important point in this paragraph. And then we can conclude that the main point highlighted in this paragraph is how dolphins can survive sharks' bites really well. What about the more specific details regarding this main point? Okay, so we ask our own made question and we respond to this question. For example, what frequently attacks dolphins? Sharks frequently attack dolphins. So that will tell us that the injury that is highlighted in this paragraph, and maybe in the text where this paragraph was taken from, the injuries were mainly caused by sharks. What injury do dolphins suffer from sharks' bites? Gaping holes bigger than a basketball. So this is a very serious injury. Do dolphins die from sharks' bites? What does this paragraph say? These remarkably clever creatures defy death. As mentioned earlier on, the word creatures refers to the dolphins and the word defy means overcome. So does it mean dolphins die after being bitten by sharks? The answer is no, because they are able to defy death as stated in this paragraph. You could also see another line here, heal without any medical treatment. So imagine this, okay? Use your power of visualization. A shark biting another animal. You watch, recall when you watch movies or TV shows that has sharks in it. You can see how vicious and violent sharks can be, and they have really sharp teeth, right? So visualize getting bitten by sharks. You will bleed. If you do not get immediate medical treatment, you will die. But according to this paragraph, dolphins are able to heal without any medical treatment. This is something remarkable, right? That is what is emphasized in this paragraph. How amazing the dolphins can be. They can survive sharks' bites. What do Dr. Zaslov hope he can ascertain? Ascertain here means can determine. So what is it that he wants to determine? How dolphins survive a shark bite. So this goes back to the main point that we have identified earlier on, that the whole paragraph is about how dolphins can survive sharks bites really well. So this is what we meant by the ARG strategies. You ask and you respond to your self-made questions based on the details given in the paragraph, and the answers are also can be found in the paragraph. Hopefully, by doing this, you are able to understand the ideas in each paragraph even better. Okay, now let's look at another example. Let's look at a non-linear text this time around. As mentioned earlier on, just by looking at the title of the visual, you can see immediately that this is the main point of this text. What about the details? How old are the kids in these statistics? So look for the details in the text and you will see that they are 2 to 11 years old. When were these statistics recorded? So you are looking for a specific time. 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, and 2009. What is the unit of measurement for the statistics? So how is the data presented? It is presented in the form of thousands. So those are the details that is important to know in this text. Okay, now let's do a quick practice. What are some relevant details in this paragraph? So I'm using the same paragraph that we used as practice when we were trying out SIP. Captain Baker had just returned from a business trip to Washington and found his wife Jane waiting for him at the station in New York. She had tickets for the opera that night and asked the captain to meet her there, as she was afraid they would be late if they did not go directly from the station. As we discussed earlier on, the main point here would be Captain Baker meeting his wife at the station so that they won't be late to the opera. So what could possibly be the details that is important for us to know? Perhaps you want to ask this question. What characters can be seen in this paragraph? You can write your answers in the chat section or in the comment section. What do you think the characters would be? If your answer is Captain Baker and Jane, you are absolutely right. Now, the reason I asked this question is that if you look at this paragraph again, you can see this is a narrative paragraph. It's a story. So when there is a story, there should be characters. There should be some sort of a storyline. So that is why it's important to know the characters first. Next, where did Jane ask Captain Baker to meet her? Where? What is the location? What is the setting? Your answer? Yes, they are meeting at the station. There's no information here what kind of station this is, so you have to read the second paragraph. But if you are to guess, guessing intelligently is also a good reading skill, but you have to do it very carefully. So if you are to guess what station this would be, what station do you think this would be? Police station? It's not that logical to say a police station, right? If you look at this line, the last line, she was afraid they would be late if they do not go directly from the station. So, it could be a bus station or a train station. Okay, so what do you think? Just write down your thoughts in the chat section or in the comment. Why did Captain Baker meet Jane at the station? Why? Your response would be? Yes, it's because they don't want to be late to the opera, so it's better for them to meet at the station. Okay, now we are at part 2, attempting the Muet questions, suggested steps. The suggested steps can be categorized in 3 different stages of reading. First is before you read the text. You want to start with the questions first. You want to identify possible useful keywords using your prior knowledge to help you. And you do word association as well. The second stage is the while reading the text stage. When you first read the text, you skim the whole text. Next, you perform scanning. Here, in the second reading and third reading onwards, you are going to apply SIP and ARG strategies. This is also the stage where you are going to eliminate wrong options, and you are going to look for a specific paragraph and line to support your correct option. The last stage is after reading the text stage. This is the part where you will double check your answers to make sure you have chosen the final correct option. Let's look at the first stage, before reading stage. This stage involves several mental activities. The purpose of this stage is to mentally warm up before reading the actual text. The text you are going to read in Muet can be quite long. So if you immediately read the text without any mental preparation, I'm worried that you may get overwhelmed. And when you get too overwhelmed, you will start to lose motivation to really read thoroughly all the texts given. I would suggest that you start with the questions first instead of the text. I know the common practice in any examination is to read the text then answer the questions. Let's switch it up. You start with the question first. Why? because this is a good way to get an idea what the text may be about. Then, you underline what you believe are significant keywords. Words such as nouns, adjectives, verbs, and adverbs, they contain a lot of useful information. When you look at those keywords, ask yourself, what do these keywords remind you of? Use your prior knowledge. Does it remind me of a person that I know, or a person that I have read before? An event, a date, an object, an idea? This is actually very effective in mentally getting you ready before you read a long text so that you don't become overwhelmed. You also want to do word association. By looking at the keywords that you have underlined, ask yourself these questions. What other words can I associate with the keywords with? Is there a synonym for this particular keyword? Is there any idea or concept associated with this word? Let's look at some examples. Let's look at this question. The aim of the research conducted at the Oswaldo Cruz Foundation in Rio de Janeiro is to study A. The long-term impact of mosquito-borne diseases using scientific models. B. The different procedures for reducing the vectors involved in dengue infections. C. The relationship between the breeding plates of mosquitoes and the incidence of dengue. So what can we see in this question? We can see that a research has been done about mosquitoes at Oswaldo Cruz Foundation. And we also see there is a mention of diseases caused by mosquito. And one disease mentioned was dengue. So based on these keywords that we have underlined, ask yourself, what do these keywords remind you of? For example, if you see the word dengue, does it reminded you of Aedes? It is common knowledge here in Malaysia that dengue is caused by Aedes, and it is a dangerous disease as it can cause death. What is happening now is that we are using our prior knowledge to relate what we see in the question and to what we already know. Next, by looking at the keywords, let's do word association. For example, if you see the word aim, what synonym that has the same meaning? It could be goal or it could be purpose. Another example, the word research. What could other word be that has the same meaning? Maybe it could be study. Then we see the word diseases. Now, it could be that when we talk about diseases, when we think about it, it could relate to someone or people being sick. And when people being sick, they need treatment. You might be wondering, why are we doing word association? What is the function? You must understand this. The words used in the question may not be the same as the words used in the text. That is why at the beginning of this lesson, I mentioned that you should focus on the overall meaning, comprehend the overall meaning of what you see in the question and in the text, instead of focusing the meaning of specific words. Now, let's look at the second stage of reading, while reading. The purpose of this stage is to comprehend the meaning of the given text and answer the test questions based on what we have understood about the text. When you first read the text, just skim the whole text. You don't have to worry about seeing unfamiliar words or judging whether you understand what you just read. The focus of this step is to get a gist or overall meaning of the whole text. When you start reading the text the second time onwards, this is where you start looking for specific information. You start scanning for main points and specific details. Use the SIP and ARG strategies which has been explained earlier on. Once you have read the paragraph, it's time to answer the questions. And of course, you want to eliminate the wrong options. Cross out options that look wrong to you or which are not supported by clues in the text. You can do this by finding the line or sentence or paragraph that can support your correct option. For the options that you believe is the correct answer, after you have understood the main points and supporting details, you have to find that specific evidence. And the specific evidence could be a specific line and paragraph. So just write down the line and paragraph number next to the question. Let's look at this example. Researchers led by Paula Luz of the Oswaldo Cruz Foundation of Rio de Janeiro used mathematics and computer models to stimulate the impact over 5 years of dozens of different strategies for reducing the vectors involved in the transmission and spread of dengue. The cost of different approaches was also taken into account using World Health Organization (WHO) cost-effectiveness guidelines, that is, the trade-off between results and price tag. The first thing we want to do is to understand the most important main point here. This paragraph started with the mentioning of a research done by several researchers in Rio de Janeiro using different models. But what we have to focus more is the purpose of this research. So, we are applying SIP. If you look at this part of this paragraph, different strategies for reducing vectors involved. This is the purpose of this research. So the purpose of this research could possibly be the main point, the most important main point of this paragraph. So testing different strategies to reduce transmission and spread of dengue. Now that we have found the possible main point, let's look at the details given in this paragraph. So here we are going to apply ARG. So we can ask several questions, maybe 3 to 5 questions, depending on what details we want to further understand. For example, who carried out a research on mosquitoes? The answer would be researchers led by Paula Luz. Where was the research done? What methods used in the research? Mathematics and computer models to stimulate the impact. What was the purpose of the research? Different strategies for reducing the vectors involved and in the transmission and spread of dengue. Is the research cost-effective? Most probably, because this research used World Health Organization cost-effectiveness guidelines. The last stage is the after reading stage. The purpose is simple, to double check your answers. So you want to cross-check between your chosen option and the evidence. The evidence refers to the line and paragraph in the text that has the words or phrases to support your option. So a suggestion is to write down the line and the paragraph number at each question. This will make the cross-checking easier. Double-check all questions that have been answered. Compare your notes about what you understand about the text and the questions and compare it to your answer in the OMR form. Make sure your answers in the OMR form are correctly shaded. Let's look at this example. I'm using the same question I used previously. The aim of the research conducted at the Oswaldo Cruz Foundation in Rio de Janeiro is to study A. The long-term impact of mosquito-borne diseases using scientific models. B. The different procedures for reducing the vectors involved in dengue infections. C. The relationship between the breeding plates of mosquitoes and the incidence of dengue. By now, you should have a complete text where this question is based on. If not, you can always recall the previous slide where I shared with you the example of a paragraph about the mosquito research. Now, here the keywords are aim of the research, conducted at Oswaldo Cruz Foundation. The answer is B. The different procedures for reducing the vectors involved in dengue infection. This is the purpose of the research. When you double check your answers, you will see that the answer is located, the evidence is located in paragraph 3, line 17 to 18. Before we move on to the next part of this lesson, let's listen to the students respond to this question.
Assalamualaikum and hi everyone, my name is Alia from A4P2, and yes, before this I have the feel that reading is boring sometimes, but now I didn't feel it is anymore because my teacher NORLIANA, has taught me on skim and scan the question first and then elaborate each of the word in the question so that we will not get bored easily and sleepy anymore. Other tips, which is my favorite tips, is to do a summary in each of the paragraph, and then we will find a suitable answer for the questions given. So as the final observation, I personally think that answering Muet reading question is not boring because I've know the important tips on answering Muet reading questions. Thank you.
Now, let's look at part 3, true, false, not stated questions. What you need to know. So, what is true, false, not stated question? You'll be given a number of statements or sentences, and you are to compare them to the ideas found in the given texts. You have to determine whether the ideas in the statements and the texts are, first, true statements, meaning the ideas in the statements match the meaning of ideas in the given texts. 2, the statement is false, which means the ideas in the statements do not match the meaning of ideas in the given texts because certain information is false. Third, not stated, or the ideas in the statements are not found in the given texts. Now, let's look at example 1. As suggested before, we start with the question, not the text. So let's study this statement together. Trying to kill mosquito larvae with insecticide can lead to mosquitoes developing resistance to the insecticide. So what do you think is the important keywords in this question? You can see here that if you are to paraphrase the sentence or the statement, it could mean that to kill the mosquito larva with insecticide may not be effective anymore as mosquitoes are becoming immune or have developed resistance to the insecticide. So that is the meaning of this statement. Now, let's look at this text. In the first reading, you want to skim through the whole text. And when you carry out the second or the third reading onwards, you can begin to apply SIP and ARG. So now, I am going to give you about 1 minute to quickly skim through the text. Okay, I believe by now you have finished skimming the text. So what can you see in this text from your skimming just now? Anything in particular keep popping out? Okay, write your response in the chat section or in the comment section, and the moderators will help you if you need some guidance. After you have finished first reading, now is your second, third, or maybe fourth reading. This is the time you want to really scan for information. This is where you use SIP and ARG. So as you can see in this paragraph, the paragraph starts with the method used in most countries. What method? To destroy breeding areas for mosquitoes. Okay, and then we can see that there has been evolution. All right, insecticide resistant and lost herd immunity. Okay, so here, what else do we have? The problem of mosquitoes adapting to insecticide. Adapting here means they are beginning to become more familiar with the insecticide that now is no longer effective to kill them. Okay, and here you can see the line, but not all were as effective in reducing disease outbreak over a long period of time. Okay, so what can we conclude? This particular line. Compare it to what we have in the statement. The meaning match. Mosquitoes adapting to insecticide. Meaning, the mosquito has now developed resistance to this insecticide. Therefore, making this statement a true statement. Now, let's look at example 2. Let's start with the question first. The majority of e-cigarette users were occasional users. So what are the keywords? Yes, majority, e-cigarette users, and occasional. With that in mind, now let's read and comprehend this text. I will give you some time to do so. Based on this text, you can see that the percentage of e-cigarette users and non-users of electronic cigarettes are different. And the percentage is categorized according to male and female users. If you look at and focus on e-cigarette users, the total number of male and female users was 1.5%. Daily smokers or daily users was 0.9%, whereas occasional smokers or users is just 0.6%. So from this data, we can clearly see that the occasional users are not the majority e-cigarette users. Therefore, based on this understanding, we can say the answer for this question is false. Now, let's look at example 3. Study the question or statement first. Many e-cigarette users are below the age of 15. What do you think are the keywords? Yes, these are the keywords. Many e-cigarette users below age of 15. Now, let's read and comprehend this text very quickly. This is the same text that I used in example 2. What can you see in this text? Do you see any mention of the age of the users? No. The age of the users, both e-cigarette users or non-users, are not mentioned. The answer for this question is not stated. For not stated question or statement, you want to check both linear and non-linear text, because this kind of question can be quite tricky. Make sure you understand the overall meaning of the ideas given in both texts and not just the words given. Do you know that you can use what you have learned about true, false, not stated questions to eliminate wrong options in other type of questions? This is a useful tip. The options in non-true, false, not stated questions are more varied. They are not just limited to true, false, and not stated. It depends on the questions given. However, I would like to caution you that this is not the only way to eliminate wrong options. Always go with the overall meaning of the questions and options given. Adapt and adopt different reading strategies so that you'll be confident to choose the most correct answer. Let's look at this example. Study this question first. The strategy to search and destroy breeding places. Lines 41 and 42. What do you think are the keywords in this question? The keywords are the line given in the question. If you see this kind of question where the lines are indicated, it means this specific line can be found in one of the paragraphs in the texts. Let's look at the paragraph. He has not, however, been able to convince health officials in his country to switch tactics, he added. The most applied strategy is to search and destroy breeding places. This has not worked well. We need a new strategy, one that does not exist yet. But I am sure that we will find one soon, he said. You can find this paragraph in text 2 in the given reading texts that you should have by now. What can we see in this paragraph? Apply the ARG strategy. What strategy is stated in this paragraph? What do we know about this strategy? Does it say whether it is popular, effective, or easy to implement? You are given one specific line from this paragraph, but you do not depend on that line alone. You have to look at the other words or phrases given in the paragraph where the line is located. Here, we see the phrase most applied, and this has not worked well. These two words and phrases referred to the strategy used to search and destroy breeding places of mosquitoes. If we look at the words we have highlighted in the paragraph, the most applied strategy can be associated to phrases like most used strategy or most known strategy. The phrase this has not worked yet could suggest that this is not effective. It's not showing any result. Thus, what can we conclude? If you look at the options given for this question, A is popular, B is the most effective, C is easy to implement. Is popular. Would you say that this option is true? Can it be found in the paragraph? Yes. Look at the line, the most applied strategy. It could be understood as being the most used or known strategy. What about option B? Is the most effective. Is it the most effective strategy? No, it's not the most effective strategy, making this option false. What about C? Easy to implement. Do you see any words or phrases, details in this paragraph that suggest this strategy of searching and destroying breeding places is easily implemented? No, because it's not stated. Therefore, the answer for this question, the most correct answer would be A, is popular. We have reached the final part of this lesson, part 4, recap. We are going to recall what you have learned so far. First, reading is the most difficult paper to score in Muet. It carries 120 marks out of 300 marks. Next, use active reading strategies so that you can focus better, use your mental skills, and have better comprehension. You want to use these two strategies, summarize main points or SIP, and ask and respond to self-made questions or ARG. Next, suggested steps to answer Muet reading questions can be categorized into 3 stages. Before reading, where you are going to look for keywords, do some word association so that you would have an idea what the text will be about. Second stage is during reading. This is where you apply the SIP and ARG strategies and locate the answers and the supported idea as evidence. And last is the after reading stage. This is the stage where you cross-check your answers with the evidence that you have determined by looking at a specific paragraph and line in the text. And the last one is understanding true, false, not stated questions, the difference between true, false, and not stated, and also you can use what you understand about this type of question to eliminate wrong options in other type of questions. The following are tips given by students to improve reading skills. Here are other tips for better reading comprehension. Be confident. Regardless of your language competency, whether you have strong or not so strong English proficiency, you must not easily give up. Just because you stumble upon difficult words that you have not seen before, or there are certain parts you do not understand in the text, try your best to stay focused and complete the task given. You should read more. The more you read, the more knowledgeable you become. You'll be more familiar with different types of texts and vocabulary or structures. This will also help you to be more confident in your reading skills. You should focus more on the overall meaning of the text you are reading, not just on words alone. And if you have worries about not able to do reading tests well, deal with it before the test, not during the test. If you know you have problems with vocabulary or not understanding certain types of texts, then do something about it. Don't just say you have problems. Take actions. You can adapt or adopt the tips and strategies that have been taught to you or shared with you. Use whatever that works best. Don't simply shoot for answers blindly. Worst case scenario, if you have to guess, guess intelligently, meaning use the words and phrases in the text to support your answers or your guess. Here, I would like to propose something for you. 7-day reading challenge. One text a day. By now, there should be about 7 days before the Muet listening, reading and writing test, which will be held on the 6th of February. So hence, the 7-day reading challenge. I challenge you to read one reading text a day. It's up to you what type of reading text you want to read, what genre, as long as it is an English language text. So read the text. Apply the SIP and ARC strategies. I know we don't have much time, but like I said earlier on, be confident. Don't easily give up yet. There are many articles online that you can search for. But if you don't have the time to look for different articles at different sources online, you can go to this link. Here at this Wakelet page, I have listed out different articles according to different themes. So, pick one every day for you to read and understand. Let's see some responses about the importance or benefits of reading.
Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. My name is Nur Ain. Reading have many benefits to us, especially to Muet candidates. In my opinion, some of the benefits are reading can enhance our vocabulary and also widen our knowledge. If we do our reading exercise every day, it also helps us in doing our speaking, writing and listening tasks. So, we can excel our Muet examination successfully. So that's all for me. Thank you.
On behalf of the English Language Unit, Negeri Sembilan Matriculation College, I wish you all the best in your Muet examination. Remember, you read for knowledge as knowledge is power. With that, that's the end of this lesson. Take care. Bye.